Hey, my name is Dan and I'm here to show you how I mixed The Dark Age by MGMT. This was an unmixed stems given out by Rhythmic machine, so all of the sound designs were done by them. In this video, I will show you how I honed my mixing and mastering skills through this song by MGMT. First up, I wanted to show you how I mix the synths. Well, at the first track here we have the main synthesizer. The goal is you wanted to give a little bit of the acidity and some kind of reverb. Well, this is how it sounds like. The original stems, this is how it sounds like. And as what I've said before, I wanted to put some decapitator and finish verb. The decapitator was supposed to enhance the acidity of the synthesizer, and the finish verb was to give it some type of sound imaging. Also put out some ozone imager here to spread out the synthesizer to give it some depth of the synthesizer. And this is the Abbey Road RS-124 stereo. This is supposed to be working as the compressor. So this is how it sounds like after I mixed it. As you can hear, the acidity has been enhanced and the feedback verb and the ozone works perfectly here. Look at this polar sample. Okay, next up we're going to the synth variation. This is what it sounds like before I mixed it. My main goal is I wanted to put out some delay to kind of smoothen the synthesizer, and this Q3, I believe you can replace this with any of the EQ that you have to cut out some low, and after that I'm putting some exciter. You can use anything, but if you have this one, I am recommending you to get this and put it here to sort of brighten up the synthesizer a bit, and also verb and ozone imager. This is a free plugins, by the way, so you could get this for free. Two of these were meant to be the sound imager of this track. Also, this the same Abbey Road RS-124 for the compressor and auto pen. Okay, so let's hear it. Yeah, so it bounced left and right, and the feedback verb has given it a bit of the stereo depth. Alright, I believe that we have to move on to the chorus keys. Let's hear it. Alright, it's pretty boring. There is no reverb here, no delay to smoothen the things. Okay, so what I'm doing is I wanted to put a gain on this one, so I'm using the CLA2A stereo from Waves and putting out some chorus. And after that, I wanted to cut out some low to avoid the low end of this one to intersect with the sub bass or any of the bass here. And of course, not to mention, I have to give it a shot for the acidity of the keys with the soundtoys decapitator, and of course vintage verb, follow delay, and also the imager for the sound imaging. And this one, this is TG12345 stereo. I actually use this for enhancing the inputs. Enhancing the outputs, and let's hear it. You might be wondering if this will be too bright or too trebly, but if you were to put it into the whole mix, it has to be this way. Okay, so let's hear it in the whole mix. Imagine if it weren't decapitated and if it weren't low cutted. There's no this. Okay, you could hear that the low end part of this chorus key is fighting each other with the bass and chorus from here. Plucks sub bass. Okay, next up we have the Mallets here. Mallets is an interesting part of this song because it is in the, I believe it is in the third phase, in the last of the third phase. It is right after the bridge lead or the synth solo. This is the original sound. It is not pretty exciting, isn't it? So what I wanted to put first is I wanted to put the CLA again to, you know, crank up some of the gain first, and then putting up some vintage verb again, Philic Q3 to cut out the low, and some of the delay. I am putting the delay right after the Q2 so I wouldn't cut out some of the low end of the delay. Okay, let's hear it. The delay works out just fine, exactly what I wanted it to be. Okay, so let's hear it in the whole mix. Next up is the bridge lead, or as I call it, is the solo synthesizer. This is the most interesting part of the synthesizer. Alright, this is pretty boring, right? So we have to put some excitement in it. First up, of course, CLA2 for the gain staging, and Q3 to carry out some of the some of the low, and to crank up some of the high. Isn't it exciting? Okay, let's compare to this. It's a boring track if I putting this on. Isn't it so good to hear? After this, Q3, I wanted to put up some of the flanger. This is the flanger BL2 by Arturia. I'm not putting it in the 10%. I have never been using any of this like 10% and put it in max. It would just ruin the tracks. Unless, of course, that is what you are intending to do. But I'm putting it on around 9 or 10-ish to just give it a little bit of taste of the flanger. Since flanger is kind of dampening your high ends of the tracks. The delay is on 250 milliseconds to give it not too delay, but more like an echo. If both of them are turned off, it is not giving sort of the dynamics in it. So I'm putting both of them to give it a little bit of depth and the delay. Of course, I wanted to introduce you to the return tracks. The B return track consists of the follow delay, RC20. I'm putting some of the wobble, so it's it'll kind of wobbling the tracks a bit, and decay to make sure that it is not going to go on and on at a long period of time. And lastly is the wobbly delay. It is a mixture of follow delay and a bit of the low cut and an alto pan, some CLA to it to crank up the gain a bit. So here's what it sounds like in the whole mix. I'll explain to you the SFX later, but this is what it sounds like without the SFX. The original stems from Rhythmic machine. First, of course, putting up some vintage verb, flanger, Pro Q3, I believe this is for, this is a low cut, and Aphex to sort of like darken it a bit, since we have already low cutting this in the first place. Rather the darken it a bit, putting up some delay. This one is pretty huge because I wanted it to be like wobbly, muddy, some kind of things. Abbey Road, of course, for the slap compressor, and the ozone image also Imager 2 for the sound imaging. Of course, some auto pen to give it some sort of like dynamics to the whole mix. Let's hear it. As you can hear, the delay works exactly what I wanted. If I'm putting it out, it will sound like a bit boring and monotonic, but if you put out some delay in it, as you can hear, it's not that muddy, but it gives a bit of the dynamics. In the whole mix, let's hear it. It is not like a standout synthesizer, but it gives quite a bit of the dynamics. It adds the dynamics to the song. We're moving on to the Rhythmic 2. It is basically not really that far from the first one, so I'm kind of like copying this one to this one, but to the Rhythmic 2, I don't have any auto pen because I believe it doesn't need to be. It's the same thing. I'm putting out some decapitator, of course, as you can hear. Yeah, that one needs a bit acid in it, so putting up some decapitator. Of that, putting up some verb, not too much, and the delay, also the major, and last thing is the Abbey Road for the slappy compressor. Let's hear it. In the whole mix, let's hear it. Okay, we are now moving on to the 9th track, which is the outer string. This is quite tricky because, as you can hear, I believe this is not a string, this is a lead, but again, I get this from the reverb machine. The original string would be a lot bit thinner. As you can hear, this is more like a lead kind of string. But then again, we'll have to make it work for the whole mix. So to add a lot of dynamic, first up I wanted to give a verb in this one and FX exciter to to sort of like brighten it a bit, and the flanger to dampen the brightens, chorus, and the RC here to give some wobbly and spacey sound to the track, and some of this Pro Q to cut out some low and to also cut some of the high, so that it won't attack you too much on the high frequency. Next thing is the delay, of course, and the CLA2A stereo for the gain setting. I'm putting it on the 60s. If this is too much, but not that too much. I am putting it on the automation here. So I'm putting it on the automation to sort of like control the volume, like to give a lot of the dynamics to the volume itself. Okay, right after that, giving it a shot on this DG1345. I'm putting in plus 3.2 on the input and to spread it a bit. And last thing is the auto pen. Let's hear it. This is sort of a lot like a string. That is because I'm putting this 70% on the vintage verb, because if you hear it here, this is more like lead, right? So I'm putting the verb here at 60 to 70%. This is actually automated again. This is so first up, I wanted to introduce this track as a string, so I'm putting it a lot of the reverb here, and at this one I'm decreasing the amount of the reverb so that it will give some of the clarity of the track itself. Okay, let's hear it. And also for the context, this would intersect with the vocals. So I'm putting a lot of automation here at this outer string because I wanted to give the dynamics, you know, like before and after the vocals track. Okay, so you have to hear this. As you can hear, the vintage verb is a bit much, and it is decreasing from this part to this part. Alright, what we have next here is the guitar. Yeah, it's a direct input to the guitar. I believe this could be an acoustic, or yeah, it's more likely an acoustic. First up, we put out some CLA2A for the gain staging. The chorus here for just a little bit. I'm putting the mix on around the 8 o'clock here. Also in Q3 to cut out some low and boost up a little bit on 2900 hertz. Of course, an Apex synthesizer here I'm putting out on the number 6, and vintage verb just a little bit, and delay, the dynamic tool, and then some ozone major to give to spread out the guitar sound, and of course TG on 045 to spread out. Yeah, it's sort of like the same thing with this ozone major. I'm doing the same thing here with the spread. Okay, let's hear it. Alright, the key is on the delay here. Putting the delay on 300 milliseconds and 19%. So it's kind of bold, but not so bold. So in the whole mix, it'll turn out like this. It's the same thing here too. Okay, moving on the track 11, we have the fat bass here. It is most likely a synthesizer bass. So I've heard a lot of using RS-124 on bass, and it is that good. It really is, and yeah, so I'm putting it first. And the Q3 here, it's well, it's sort of like pretty tricky. I wanted to put out some of the high frequency on the bass, and also at the 150 hertz, and some decapitator to you know, sort of give out the acidity of the bass itself. So I'm putting the drive on around 6 and 7, and vintage verb, of course, to sort of like give it a little bit of wet stuff on the fat bass. And last thing is the TG1245. It is not too much. I'm just tweaking up the input gain. So without all of this, it would sound like this. If I'm putting it on, that's it. Yeah.
Breathing in the dark, lying on its side.
Next up, we're moving on to the second fat bass. It is actually just a little bit of it. Okay, so the original sounded like this. I believe this one kind of lacks of acidity, kind of lacks of drives and depth and something. So first, since it's bass, I'm putting up the Abbey RS124 again, and the Q3, a little bit of the low cut here, and some cut in the 3000 Hertz, and carburetor of course putting the drive on the 6th, and vintage verb, the same thing. This TG1045, I'm putting the input quite a lot here at around 10, and the CLA to a stereo. So I'm putting up a lot of gain staging here. I am putting a 2 grouped effects here. One of it is having this, well, not one of it, almost all of it is going to go through this compressor here. I'm sidechaining it on the kick so that it has some sort of punchy, some sort of punchiness in the whole mix. Let's hear it. Okay, and the whole mix will sound like this.
Forgiving who you are for what you've done today. Just know that you can hide. Don't end up threading for a bite.
Okay, so we are now moving on the drums or percussions. First what we have here is the kick. It is pretty easy actually, because the kick is actually, it is already good from the unmixed stems. So what I have to do is just giving up a little bit of gain input here, using the CLA to a stereo and running it down on the Pro multiband. It's a multiband EQ here. I'm sorry, it's a multiband compressor from FabFilter, but you can use anything to compensate this. So I'm putting up the first band here on the 2500 and putting it down to minus 6.75 dB, and this one so that it will dampen a bit on the high frequency. And sound a lot like this because I'm putting the Abbey RS124 here, but I'm putting the recovery on 5, so it is not really that fast. Also, it's just basically a compressor here. First we have this, and then the multiband, and the Abbey, and the last thing is the VCA65. Not really too much. Okay, next up on the snare here, I don't think that this is the right amount of mix on the snare, but this is what I did. This is before. As you can hear a bit of some sort of verb behind it, although this is an unmixed stems. So what I did is putting up some gate here. I'm putting up some gate on both sides of the effects here to cut out some of the left out snare sound. Yeah, I'm putting up the RS134 to make it quick, some carburetor, just to give a little nice texture, and just playing it up with the bright here. Of course, the multiband compressors, VCA, and the gate. As you can see here, I'm cutting out this part. So I'm putting up some gate here. As you can hear, it is quite effective. And the last thing is putting up the RS134 stereo to, kind of slap with the compressor. So since there's a difference here, that's why I'm putting up 2 of this and automate it to on and off, so that I didn't have to automate the particular or each of these effects on just about 4 bars of this. Okay, so we're moving on the head slow. It is actually not that much. I'm just putting up some multi-band compressor J37. This is not actually needed though, but if you have it, you might as well use it. So it is a tape processor, I believe. So yeah, it is good to have. And this appeared again and the Comfy CA. It is not really a lot going on in here. So we can move on to the head style. Yeah, so it is just a gain staging here. I'm putting up some Comfy CA65 and the Abbey Road RS124 stereo.
Getting all alone, open-eyed, but a big smile.
Okay, for the percussion, the last thing is on tom fill. This one, I believe this one is located on the outro. Yes, so it is sort of like the drums fill for the outro. Sort of like the bridge of it. This is how it sounds like. Okay, so it kind of lags on depth, of course, some gain. So what I did was, of course, CLA for the gain and decapitator, a bit for the texture. I didn't use the multi-band here, but I'm using the slappy compressor here, the RS124. Comfy CA, I believe this was for a gain staging. And some gate, of course. Last thing is, I am using the RC delay here for just a bit because I kind of like the, I kind of like the delay being put out on the tom fill. And the whole mix, you can hear like this. Alright, next up we have the vocals here. First up, I wanted to explain to you why I have 6 grouped effects here, which I believe basically all of this is the same thing. The essential thing is that first I am putting in the dynamic duo here, vintage verb, and the vintage delay. Then after that I'm putting the CLA to a stereo. It is a very good gain input compressor for the vocals here. And then some Q3 to cut out some of this. Well, this one is optional because it depends on your microphone. As for my microphone, I'm using the Behringer XM800 or something, 8500 or something. Yeah, so I have to cut it out at this particular hertz. And of course, some exciter here, but I'm putting it out on 3. This is actually automated. Okay, so what I wanted to share with you is that 6 of this explain the segments on the vocals. So first segments includes this, the first verse and the second verse. The second one here is for the first chorus of the vocals. And the third, sorry. Okay, for the third group effects here is for the well, it is called surface, but it is the second chorus here, and for the fourth chorus too. But for this one, 2 of this, it is practically customized for 2 of this. The fourth one here is to compensate with the dry vocal that it has on the original song. So I'm putting the vintage verb here just a little bit on the decay, only 0.23 second. The gains stay the same, and the Q3 or the EQ here is quite a lot undercut at the 260 Hertz, because I wanted it to sound like a little bit very dry. The chorus here, of course, to give out some vibrator here, and vocal synth. Yeah, it is an essential part of this because I don't really have quite a good vocal, so I will need some of the pitch correction here, but I'm putting it on 28% so it won't sound like Travis Scott or something. Not that it is that bad, but yeah, you know what I mean. And some RC20 here to give out some wobbly and distortion. So it sounded like this on the dry part.
Get it with the light, seeing what's to come.
Yeah, so just a little bit on the reverb and a bit on the on the delay here. I'm using the Sandman Pro, so it is not what I used to use, which is for delay, because I found this one is suitable for this particular dry vocal. Moving on to the next, we have the full wet vocal. So I'm doing some of the automation here with the vintage verb. So it's basically sort of like watering it down on the vocal. So yeah, it's still the same arrangement, but with the difference of the alto pan here. And some of this, I believe I'm putting it on the 5, so it's not really bright or dark.
The image of the dead ends in my mind.
Yeah, so it is quite a lot of reverb here, putting it a little bit wet, more wet. In the whole mix, it sounded like this.
Get it with the light, seeing what's to come.
So after the dry vocal, we're watering it down on the wet vocal here.
The image of the dead ends in my mind.
Okay, I'm putting 2 vocals here. Basically, it is just to compensate with the lack of gain on the first vocal, so you can actually do anything you want on the second vocal here, as long as it doesn't, as long as it won't ruin your whole mix, you can use it. Okay, next up on the chain is this one. This is the last outro vocal on the song. It's basically the same thing with the second or the third one, but you might have to tweak it a bit to compensate with the different gain added on this one and this one. So yeah, I'm just tweaking a bit on the gain, on the vibrato, and or the exciter here. So I'm putting it a little bit brighter.
Policemen swear to God, love sipping from the guns.
Alright, of course, I'm sending it to the RC delay here. I actually customized it first for this one. Okay, let's hear it on the whole mix.
Policemen swear to God, love sipping from the guns.
So this one is some pretty, chill voice. And this one is the tense one.
Policemen swear to God.
I'm putting it all together.
Policemen swear to God, love sipping from the guns. I don't love friends that I.
So the vocal so is basically sort of like my supporting vocals, and putting it, panning it on the 5 right, just sounds about right. Okay, so we're now moving on the sound effects. This one in particular was designed for this one, for the bridge. Because in the original song you have some sort of like, some sort of noisy thing going on here
It's my little dark age.
to compensate with the bridge lid. So I am not able to recreate the same thing, but I was able to come up with this one.
I burn up, it's my little dark age.
Okay, so first what we have here is the, I'm putting up the Apollo 11 radio chatter here. Putting up in the reverb and delay. Yeah, it's just basic stuff. And the ultimate Saturn V launch. It is a satellite launch, I believe. So I'm just putting up the EQ here, delay, chorus, verb, and flanger. This is actually the blast of the rocket here. By putting up some flanger, it gives out quite an interesting sound. And this in the wind sound effect, it's the same thing with this one. On the group master here, putting up some HCOM0, kind of gluing them all at once, and some RC20 to give out some distort, wobbly, magnetic, and space a bit. But the important thing is on the automation here that we have on the DG mount, on the digital here, because as you can see, the spike here is actually to recreate this type of digital sound on the original song. Okay, so with all of this, let's hear it. On the whole mix, it sounded like this. Okay, so it is not to stand out on itself, but it is just to give a little bit of the dynamics on the bridge lead here, because if you were to just listen to the bridge lead itself, I know it is not that boring, but to add up on the dynamics, it is never wrong. Alright, I believe it concludes the tutorial here for the Little Dark Age by MGMT. I wanted to say thanks for the reverb machine to giving us out their stems, their unmixed stems on their cover of Little Dark Age, and I'm very grateful for it, and I'm very grateful for it. And thank you for the opportunity to give out this tutorial on my YouTube channel. I want to say thanks if you're still watching this, and I hope you like it, and see you in my next video.